Governor Cox and Governor Shapiro have both been in the spotlight recently because of, unfortunately, incidents of political violence that have quite literally hit very close to home. Governor Cox took office in 2021 and served as the chairman of the National Governors Association from 2023 to 2024. He launched a project called Disagree Better, which we've been talking about already tonight, and he's been on a mission to bring civility back to our political landscape. And Governor Shapiro took office 2 years ago and has presided over, for at least a year, the only bipartisan legislature in the country. So he knows about working across the aisle, or as you say, and we'll do the clean version since we're in the cathedral, getting stuff done. So welcome to both of you. I think there's a joke here somewhere. A Republican, a Democrat, and a journalist walk into a cathedral. I mean, it writes itself. So you two have a lot in common. You're both governors. You're both fathers of four. You're both recovering lawyers. You both have worked across party lines. Most importantly, you're both Gen Xers. I'm going to give a shout out for that. Before we get into the meat of it, what made you want to have this conversation with each other and feel that the trust was there to have it?
Well, good evening, everyone. This is incredible, by the way. You look amazing out there. What a beautiful place to have this conversation. I got to know we have something with the National Governors Association. We call it New Governors School. And so when new governors are elected, the very seasoned governors like me, who had 2 years of experience, step in, and we have conversations with our new governors. And that's where we got to know Josh and his amazing wife, Lori. By the way, we have more in common than that. We married our high school sweethearts.
And we both married way up.
Way so far up. I hope they don't figure it out, especially tonight. And so, look, you get to know governors work together. This grand experiment that we embarked on, part of it was that the states would be laboratories of democracy, and we do have to get stuff done, and we don't care who gets the credit. If there's a good idea in a blue state, I'm going to steal it. If there's a good idea in a red state, I know Josh will use that as well. But we've had these conversations, and so I could sit up here with almost any governor in this country and have this conversation. But I just need to tell you, when that very dark day happened in my state, the first call I got was from this guy. It was from Governor Shapiro. And he gave me some advice that changed what I was going to say when I stepped in front of that camera for the first time. And he told me to speak with moral clarity and to speak from the heart. And so that's why I don't care what color his politics are. In that moment, we were two Americans who were deeply saddened and struggling, and I'm grateful that there's somebody I can trust, even though we disagree on a lot of things. We agree on this thing.
I want to begin again by saying just how extraordinary it is for us to be able to have this conversation with all of you in this extraordinary setting, both men of faith. I know we respect this cathedral quite a bit, and we're thankful for your willingness to engage in this conversation with us. When my wife and I and our family concluded our Passover Seder in April of this year, and just a few moments after we retired to the living quarters of the governor's residence, an arsonist broke in, fired Molotov cocktails throughout the home, and wielding a metal hammer later testified that he was there to use it to kill me. In the immediate moments after that, I was focused only on being a good father, a good husband, and a good governor, in that order. I felt the need to have a conversation with my family first, and with the good people of Pennsylvania second. I never looked to myself to being any sort of expert on political violence or, frankly, needing to engage in a national conversation about political violence until I saw Spencer Cox, in the wake of the killing of Charlie Kirk, handle that matter in the way that he did. I saw him lift up not just Utahns, but create an opportunity for a dialogue that I think we sorely need in this country to try and lift everyone up and get us out of the darkness of political violence that has fallen upon us. And I think it was at that moment, to get to the heart of your question, where I thought, I need to have this conversation. And it needs to be with Spencer, not just because I respect the heck out of him as a governor and because I think he does really good work. And even when we disagree on something, we disagree better and find ways to find common ground. But because I think this is a necessary conversation that has to happen in our country if we're going to get out of this. And this is the man I want to have the conversation with, given the strength of his leadership in a really dark moment in his state.
I think so many people are interested in this conversation because so many Americans are in despair about what we see, and we don't really recognize that part of our country anymore. And I hated having to start this conversation with political violence, but we have to, and especially because, Governor Shapiro, it came to your doorstep. And I wonder how having that personal experience, how you're grappling with that personally, but also how that changes your thinking about the urgency of this moment.
We have seen victims of political violence deal with the very real physical effects of it. The extreme of that, of course, Charlie Kirk in your state. We see the effects of that physically on people like Congresswoman Gabby Giffords or Congressman Scalise. But there are also scars that come that are not physical, that are emotional. And I think our family has grappled with that. I think in these jobs you recognize that, you know, there are people out there that want to do harm to you. And for me, that was always quite theoretical. I have the privilege of serving in this role and being surrounded by the Pennsylvania State Police, whose job it is to keep me safe, and I felt somewhat insulated from that. And that bubble was burst, and that insulation was gone on that April night. That has led me to feel extraordinary guilt as a dad, that doing this job that I love, that I so believe in, put my kids' lives at risk, put my wife's life at risk, put our family's lives at risk. And that's a hard thing to grapple with. It's a hard thing to work through. But as a family, we also understand that you can't allow that violence to force you off stage and to force you out of doing this work that is so unbelievably important right now. To stand up and to do this work at a time where the nation really needs us to find ways to come together and drown out those voices of hate and drown out that violence and instead focus on our common humanity. I would say that I've been helped in this healing, certainly by my best friend in the world since the 9th grade, the First Lady of Pennsylvania, my wife, Lori. But I've also, you can clap for her, very smart of whoever it was in the back row that did that. But we've also been lifted up by the people of Pennsylvania. I'm a very prayerful person. I'm a person of faith, and I pray every day, and I have throughout my life. But I have never felt the power of the prayers of others until the hours and days and weeks after the attack on our family. That's an extraordinary thing. And so through all of this, yes, there have been emotional scars, but the healing has come because of the goodness of the American people, the goodness of the people of Pennsylvania. And that's put us in a position to not only get through it, but to feel stronger as a result of it and prepare us for these kinds of conversations and the important work that we need to do to move forward.
We're gonna continue on. We do have somebody who's trying to interrupt our conversation, but I think we'll be able to carry on, and I am sure that security will let that person have their say at the appropriate moment. So we'll just continue on with our conversation. And I wanted to ask you, Governor Cox, obviously you experienced this very closely as well with the assassination of Charlie Kirk in Utah. When you think about the urgency of this moment, it does feel like all of the signs are blinking red in terms of the danger to our democracy and the danger to our sense of unity. And frankly, they're one and the same.
Yeah, the acoustics in here are amazing. It's
Thank you.
it's really great.
I knew my loud voice
That's
would come in handy one of
you
these
did
days.
great, Savannah. Thank you. Yes. So I again, when I heard about what had happened to the Shapiros. Capitol and said that he wanted to shoot me in the head. So that was 2 days ago, and we had to reach out to our kids and let them know what was happening and make sure that they were okay. And this shouldn't be happening. We had an opportunity when I launched Disagree Better with the National Governors Association. We traveled around the country and we met with experts. There are depolarization labs at places like Stanford University and others that are doing great work here. But there was one report in particular by Rachel Kleinfeld, and Rachel had studied political violence across all cultures and over time. And she was the one that got me the most interested and the most nervous, quite frankly. And what she said was that we're passing all the checkpoints towards, ultimately failed states and things like civil war. I hate even using that phrase, but if we don't make a course correction, that's where this leads. And it also creates this environment where people who aren't stable, who do have mental illness, feel like they need to do something, right? I mean, the person who threatened to shoot me 2 years ago, somebody who's been unstable for a long time, has had lots of problems. Everybody knows about these problems. But in this environment where it's so toxic, where they're hearing lies about us and our families, now feels like they have to do something. And so this is where we are. It leads to a moment where Charlie Kirk loses his life in the very act of speaking. The most American thing we can do is an act of political speech. And whether you agreed with what he said or you hated what he said, now it's harder for all of us to do that. It's harder for us to come on a stage like this, even though we do have amazing security and we appreciate that. It's there. It's always in the back of your mind, right? And so if some people now won't go to a college campus where a rally is happening because of what happened at Utah Valley University, then we've lost a piece of what makes us American, what the founders so believed in. And so to the things that were said earlier, that you've all said so eloquently, that's where we have to fight. We have to fight to protect that for us to be able to engage. Because one of the things that Charlie said that I so believe is, he says, when we stop talking, that's when we start shooting. And so we have to fight back against that. We have to put our stake in the ground and say, we're going to have events like this and others where we can disagree passionately, where we can try to convince others about what we believe in, because that's what it means to be an American.
I feel like, you can have this conversation, and I'm just going to go ahead and be blunt, because there is a lot of divisive rhetoric that's out there. And I actually had a beautiful montage prepared to show you that was completely bipartisan, because you can actually find examples that are deeply disturbing from both sides of the aisle. And my question to you is, who do you blame? How did we get here? Where is the line? Is it okay to say a political figure is a threat to democracy? Is it okay to say, I hate my political enemy? Where is the line? Because we have to get very practical about it. It's lovely to have a conversation, preaching to the choir quite literally in a church. And it's another thing to say, this is acceptable and this isn't in terms of leadership. And where would you speak to that? Where do you feel that line is?
Well, let's be clear. Political violence has hit people on the left and the right. It's been engaged in by some people on the political left and the political right. Let's remember, when you pick up a gun and try and shoot someone, You are not sane and rational and a linear thinker, and so sometimes your views can be characterized on the political right or the political left. In just the last few months, you've seen Charlie Kirk, a conservative, and Speaker Hortman in Minnesota murdered. People on the left and right. In my home state, you've seen an assassination attempt on the President of the United States on the right, and myself and my family on the political left. We need to begin by saying that all leaders must condemn all political violence, not cherry pick which violence to condemn and which violence to accept. Leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity and call it out wherever they see it, exactly the way Spencer Cox does. Here's what we cannot allow. For leaders that don't act with moral clarity, remain silent about certain violence, or give a pass to others. Because that is insidious, that is gasoline on the fire, and that leads to greater violence. I'm going to say it, and I realize it may not be popular with some in this room. When you're a governor, when you're a president of the United States, you are looked to for that moral clarity. And we have a president of the United States right now that fails that test on a daily basis. It should not be hard to see the Minnesota Speaker of the House gunned down and mourn her loss. It should not be hard to follow the beautiful eulogy of Erica Kirk with an amen instead of saying, I can't do that, I hate my enemies, as the president did. We have a crisis in this country that requires all of us to do better. The panel before spoke about citizen engagement and participation. What are we to ask of citizens if their leaders aren't meeting that standard? I understand that there are ways to disagree forcefully on policy, but I think it is critically important that at the same time we leave no room for anyone to allow for violence and fail to universally condemn it. That is what we need in this country, and I believe it starts at the top.
Well, Governor Cox, it puts you in an awkward position as a Republican, but I think you're familiar with that space, and you've spoken and you've been quite candid when you've agreed with President Trump and when you haven't. After the attempt on his life, you wrote a letter to President Trump, and you reached out a hand and you said, I hope that this is a moment in which you can unify our country. You can do that. How do you feel that he has responded to that? Do you still feel hope that that can happen?
Sure.
And
yeah.
Look, there are people that admire him and want his bluntness and want that because they feel like the times call for it.
Yeah.
And in fairness to them, they think the time for polite dialogue is over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you respond to all of these varying factors?
Sure. Yeah. So this is the thing that always comes up, right? And there's two things I want to say. So one, I think if President Trump were here right now, he would tell you that this isn't his thing, and he would be very honest about that. I think he was very honest about it at the celebration of Charlie Kirk's life, and he and I have had this conversation. And it was interesting after the press conference when I talked, when I shared so passionately how I felt about bringing our country together. He called me and he thanked me and he said, "I appreciate that you said that, and I liked that part." And he was asked afterwards. He said, "Do you agree with Governor Cox that we should practice nonviolence?" And he said, "Yes, I agree with him 100%." Now that didn't get as much attention, obviously, and I'm not trying to play down his divisive rhetoric at all. I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to say this: if we think that a president of the United States or a governor is going to change where we are right now, we're fooling ourselves. I truly believe that the people of our country are the ones who are going to have to change this. Our elected officials are a reflection on us. They're a reflection on we the people. This idea that we feel it's okay to scream and interrupt now, we've given a pass to this type of boorish behavior for far too long, and this is what we get. If we want to change what's happening in Washington D.C., we the people have to decide that this is not who we are. We have to demand better. There is an exhausted majority in this country. 70% of Americans hate what's happening in politics right now. They're desperate for something different. And yes, you can point at the president, but I'm just here to tell you that neither party is interested in addressing that market failure right now. And until one of these parties decides that we're going to do something different, that we're going to go back to treating each other with dignity and respect, whether you're MAGA, whether you're progressive, whatever label we give you, then we're never going to get out of this. And so I'm hopeful. I do have some optimism in the past couple months. I've seen Americans come out of the woodwork to say that they're ready, that they're tired, they want something different. And I keep hearing from you. And please keep demanding something different and vote for something different.
I mean, since we're in this place and in the spirit of openness and introspection, I mean, you said what you had to say about President Trump. When you look inward and you look at your own party and the rhetoric and some of the things you've heard, where do you see room for improvement? Where do you feel like a call equally needs to be made?
I think all leaders have a responsibility to speak and act with moral clarity. As I said a moment ago, it is oftentimes toughest to call it out when it's on your side. When I watched my friend Spencer Cox dealing with the tragedy in Utah, and there were people on my side of the aisle, or people who thought like me or agreed with me politically, celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk, I called that out. When there were people celebrating what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania, thank God the president wasn't killed but was shot at, I called that out. When I went to Altoona, Pennsylvania, where we captured Luigi Mangione, and there were people saying sometimes that kind of violence is acceptable because we have to make change in our healthcare system, I called that out. That is not okay. Violence is never the answer, even if it's coming from your political side or someone who agrees with you. And one of the things I admire most about Spencer Cox is his capacity to sit up here and say what he just said, and for his ability every single day to call it out wherever he sees it. I think we need more of that kind of leadership in America. And I think we cannot be afraid to call it out on our side, and we can't give it a pass on our side. That's what I said before a moment ago, criticizing the president for being unwilling to acknowledge the death of Speaker Hortman. I can't do that and then turn around and not call it out on our side. We need all leaders to stand up and recognize violence is not okay to change policy. Violence is not okay to settle our differences. Violence is not okay to call out people that you don't like. What is imperative is that we engage more in democracy building, that we vote, that we engage with lawmakers and force them into positions where they're going to actually solve our problems. I think so often, back to the thing you said, the clean version of get stuff done, which is our motto in Pennsylvania, I think so oftentimes people feel hopeless. They feel that there's not opportunity for them in their communities or in the Commonwealth or in our states. And I think it's incumbent upon leaders to not only call it that violence, but make sure people feel like there's some hope, that there is some opportunity. Hope because they see something good in their community, or opportunity to change the things that they do not like about their society. That is what we need more of in this country. And by the way, I'll just thank the cathedral for the amazing acoustics. I can't hear a word of what these people are yelling about. What we need is civil discourse in this country and more engagement in this country and more hope and more opportunity.
It's interesting because you've talked a lot about the exhausted majority, and it sure seems that way when I walk around on the street or people talk to me, they're saying the same thing. They're just so tired of it. And as I said, so discouraged and despairing about where we are. And yet, when you think about this call to civility and moderation, are there enough of those folks? Are they voting? Because it seems like all of the incentives are set up for division. We should talk about social media. We are being groomed for rage. There's no question about it. It's an algorithm. It triggers our brain chemistry. It's not a fair fight, and people are being put into these silos. And how much do you lay at the feet of these companies, and what do you think we can do about this?
Yeah, so look, thank you for asking the question. That question deserves applause because I think people do agree. We live in a very interesting time. If you want to be angry at someone, be angry at the social media companies, okay? These are the wealthiest and most powerful companies in the history of the world. And they're profiting off of destroying our kids and destroying our country. And they know it. And it's very intentional. We know because we're suing them, and we've seen the whistleblowers who have come forward. You're right, it's not a fair fight. They've hijacked our brains. They understand these dopamine hits. Outrage sells. It started with cable news, and then social media figured out how to ratchet it up so it's constantly there. It's constantly in front of you. And they gave your daughter an eating disorder, and they gave your son a pornography addiction, and they give all of our kids and grandkids anxiety and depression, and some of them have taken their lives because they want to profit off of this dopamine addiction that they're giving our kids. And it's not just our kids, it's all of us. It's the adults too. So what can we do? There are certain things we can do. We've passed laws in the state of Utah. Sadly, they're suing us. Those laws are on hold right now. Even though they know it's destroying our kids, they don't care. They're going to hold on to every last dime they can. Even though they have trillion-dollar market caps, it's still not enough. And fortunately, some places like Australia, just today, they have a ban on social media ages under 16.
Is that something either of you would like to see?
100%, I would support that.
What about you, Governor Shapiro, a ban on social media for under 16? Governor Shapiro, is that something you'd support, what we're seeing in Australia now?
I don't know that I'd support that. I think the approach that we've tried to take in Pennsylvania, led by our First Lady, has been ensuring that digital literacy is taught in our classrooms, that our teachers are empowered to understand how to do it, and that our students are in a position to receive that information and understand these powerful phones and computers that they have. They can be used for good, but they also have to be used in a way that folks understand fact from fiction, that they understand how addictive these platforms are and how they can learn how to use them in moderation. We are working with our school districts to figure out the best policy on phone usage and what can be used. I think it is important that young people learn about these tools. They are empowered to use them responsibly, while at the same time, those of us in positions of authority hold these companies accountable. I say it as a governor, as a former attorney general that has sued these social media companies. We have to hold them accountable. They've got to change their practices, and they should not be given carte blanche by this federal administration. There have to be some controls on what they do.
This is a golden opportunity to disagree better, isn't
Totally.
it, Governor Cox? Because here's an issue where you disagree. You would like to see a ban like that.
Yeah, I would. And look, I understand where Governor Shapiro's coming from. I was there once, and it's just, the damage is just too great on our kids right now. We don't give them driver's licenses when they're 12. We don't do that because it may, it can take their life. This is, by the way, and I want to give Governor Shapiro credit. These are the opioid companies of the early 2000s. There's no difference, and so it's not enough just to show them, again, it's addictive, and it's addictive by design. All we tried to do was to make them remove the most addictive features on their products for kids. That's it. And they wouldn't even do that. So they're bad faith actors, and they no longer deserve the benefit of the doubt. And so again, but this is an important conversation. We've banned them from our schools. Test scores go up in every school where they've been banned. Behavioral problems go down in every school where phones have been banned. Something magical happens. One school in particular, they thought there was a fight in the lunchroom because it was so loud in there. Principal runs into the lunchroom and realized there's no fight. Kids were doing something they hadn't done in years. They were talking to each other. They were looking at each other in the eye. They were having fun again. We have to restore our kids' childhood, and we'll continue to advocate for this.
By the way, that's just a little mini debate, a flavor of how we can have a disagreement and do it civilly.
Of course, yeah.
I didn't say he's an evil person because he doesn't want to ban social media, right? That's the difference. I think this is really important, you guys. Some people think that this idea of disagreeing better means we just have to be nice and we can't have any partisan rhetoric. That is not true at all. That is not what we're talking about. We have to disagree, and we should disagree passionately. And again, I'm just doing a poor man's impression of Yuval Levine. The Constitution forces us to disagree within a framework that we have to build a coalition to be able to pass a law that says that you can't have social media under the age of 16. So if I go around saying that everybody who likes social media is an evil person, I'm probably not going to get the bill passed that I want to get passed. I've got to work with people who disagree with me, so I've got to treat them with respect. I've got to listen to what they have to say. I've got to explain with logic what I'm trying to say, and hopefully get enough votes to get this thing passed that I want to pass.
The one unfortunate byproduct of this conversation is that, there used to be this old saying in Washington, you're entitled to your opinion, but not your own facts. Well, now it seems there's so much misinformation that people do seem to have their own facts. We're not at a place where we have an agreed upon set of facts that we then debate. And what do we do to take that on?
I think it starts in our classrooms, and I'll come back to the digital literacy work that the First Lady is doing. I'll come back to saying we've got to do a better job of putting more civics education back into our classrooms. I think we have to challenge our kids, as Lori and I do with our 4 children, when they come running to us with their opinion because of something they saw online. The first question we ask them is, how do you know that's true? And force them to check their information before they go and form their opinion. I think so oftentimes young people are incentivized to go and form an opinion and create a fight with someone else, a conflict with someone else. Conflict and debate is fine, but it's got to be rooted in a basic set of facts. Now, in fairness, our young people see the grown-ups and people in positions of authority having those fights, oftentimes not based on fact, or being incentivized online, getting more likes or more love on social media when they have hotter fights as opposed to finding ways to find common ground. I imagine if we were live streaming this on Twitter, I'm not sure we'd get a whole lot of likes unless we were fighting with each other. Part of that is sort of reoriented people's minds around the idea that having these kinds of conversations, having civil discourse, rooting it in fact, encouraging young people to form opinions based on those facts, not based on the rhetoric or misinformation of others, I think that's really important. And the final piece I'll say, sorry, Savannah, on this is, with more and more misinformation being created through AI, I think there's even greater responsibilities on government to find areas to regulate, to have markings on things that are clearly made with AI as opposed to other sources, and to give young people the tools they need to learn fact from fiction so they can form opinions and debate those opinions in a really thoughtful way.
Do you ever think, who even asked for this? Did we elect anyone to have AI that some people think has the potential to literally destroy humankind, and it's already degraded our humanity so much in terms of social media and all of these issues that we're talking about. It's funny because you mentioned this expert, and I had written down one of her quotes, Rachel Kleinfeld, and it goes to the point of the radical middle or normal or people that aren't angry and hateful are not the people that are driving the conversation. And she said most partisans hold major misbeliefs about the other party's preferences. This perception is highest among progressive activists, followed closely by extreme conservatives. In other words, the people who are most involved in civic and political life hold the least accurate views of the other side's belief. So those who understand the least and have the most misinformed opinions about what the other side believes are the ones driving the conversation.
Yeah, so we refer to this as the perception gap, and there have been lots of research projects that have confirmed that this exists. So if you interview 1,000 Republicans and ask them what they believe on 20 of the most controversial issues, then you interview 1,000 Democrats and on what they believe on the most controversial issues, and you kind of plot those out and look at the median Republican and the median Democrat, we're this far apart on most issues. If you do the opposite, though, if you ask 1,000 Republicans what they think Democrats believe, and you ask 1,000 Democrats what they think Republicans believe, and then you plot that out, we're this far apart. And that's really dangerous. And it's more dangerous when, as again, I'll quote Yuval, when you put yourself in a cocoon surrounded by people who only agree with you and then talk about other people that you don't really know, then that gap gets even wider, right? So we have to find ways to be in a room together, to look each other in the eye, to have a conversation. Because when we do that, what we find out is that we actually aren't as far apart as we thought we were. And yes, we're not going to agree on banning social media under 16, but turns out I actually agree that we should have a literacy initiative in Utah like what you're doing in Pennsylvania. And so we've actually talked about this. We're going to work on this together. We're going to send kids from Utah to Pennsylvania, the American Exchange Project. It's amazing. We've been doing this work for a while, sending kids on a 2-week experience from country towns to a big city somewhere else in the country and vice versa, to have these experiences with people who are different than them so that they can realize that what we have in common is so much greater than what separates us, and I don't have to hate you, and I don't have to be scared of you. We can actually work together.
A final word, because I know we're close to ending in time, but again, with respect to this beautiful place we find ourselves, faith is very important to both of you, and I think part of what we're talking about and what we've diagnosed is the loneliness that people have and the feeling that they're siloed in their corners. How does faith inform your thinking about this, and whether you're a person of a lot of faith or no faith at all, how people can find community and look each other in the eye again, or touch grass, as Governor Cox said so memorably before?
I think faith is universal. We may worship differently, we may pray to different gods. Spencer and I are men of deep faith. He a Mormon, me a Jew. Each of our faiths has a commonality to it, that we are both called to serve others. I'll share with you that I have seen in my Commonwealth, as I've been open about my faith, people of other faiths have been drawn in and shared with me their stories. I mentioned before about people praying for us and feeling the strength of the prayer. I'll leave you with this. In the wake of the attack on the governor's residence and our family, we wanted to immediately thank all of the firefighters who came to rescue us, who literally were running into our home as it was on fire as we were being escorted out. And our kids thought it would be really nice to make them a meal, Savannah, but I didn't want to kill the firefighters by cooking for them. So we partnered with Robert Irvine, a wonderful celebrity chef who does amazing work for first responders and veterans. And about 4 days after the attack, we served them a lunch at the local firehouse in Harrisburg. And all of the responding fire companies came, including the North Penn Fire Department, a small volunteer fire department in south central Pennsylvania. We made a point to shake every firefighter's hands, and at the conclusion of that, an elderly man came walking over to us and introduced himself as John Wordle Sr., the chaplain from the Penn Township Fire Department. And he handed me a letter. And the letter on it was a beautiful note signed by each member of their volunteer fire department. And he asked me to turn it over. And when I turned over this paper, handed to me by a chaplain of 82 years old, registered from a different political party, from a different era, a different hometown than I, he had written his favorite prayer on the back. The prayer he wrote on the back is what I and Lori refer to as the priestly blessing, the blessing that we say over our children at night, a prayer of comfort and a prayer of peace and a prayer of protection. It was his favorite passage from the Old Testament that he wanted to give to us. There's a universality in our humanity and in our faith. There is more that binds us as Americans than divides us. The answers to so much of the darkness that we see in America today is the light that ordinary Americans bring each day, oftentimes grounded in faith and in our shared humanity. I think politicians would do well to take cues from the people that they represent, to listen more to them, to see our shared humanity and our common bonds. That is what this horrific experience that my family and I went through has taught us, that there is goodness out there. The good ways in which people reacted to how Spencer Cox led Utah and really led America through that tragedy. That is what we should take inspiration from. I hope that as everyone leaves here tonight, you recognize Spencer Cox is doing a heck of a job in Utah, and I'm trying to hold my own in Pennsylvania, but that the best thing we have going for us as a nation right now are not with people with titles next to their names, but by ordinary Americans who are doing extraordinary things every single day. And for that, I feel blessed to be an American and blessed to be the governor of Pennsylvania.
And Governor Cox, I'll give you the final word.
Well, Savannah, I don't deserve the final word after that. I want to thank Governor Shapiro for his leadership, for his friendship, again, for the direction he gave me. This Jewish friend of mine was an answer to my prayers at the darkest moment in my service as governor of Utah. And I believe that God does work through, there are angels, and I believe in them. I believe they're here with us tonight. I feel that Spirit of God with us. But often he works through the angels who we can see. Our friends, our neighbors, the people around us. And I believe that, and I felt those prayers as well. Look, we're about to celebrate 250 years of this great experiment that are the founders of this country embarked on. It was an experiment in self-government. And there were two things that they believed we had to have as a people to be worthy of this experiment. We needed to be people of knowledge. We had to understand. We had to be learned, and we had to be moral. The virtues that were talked about earlier. We had to be a virtuous people for us to keep this republic. And one of the ways that we learned virtue was through our faith, was through attending church, going to a place of worship. But just as important as that, it was that we sat by people who were a little different than us. We got to know people in our communities. Now, look, I know there are a lot of people who don't go to church anymore, and those are decisions. But I hope whatever you're doing, you're finding that experience somewhere. An experience where you get to know people around you, not on your phone, not these fake relationships, digital relationships that we have, but real relationships. You mentioned loneliness. We're lonelier than ever before as a country, and we're wired for connection. We have to find that connection. I would encourage you to try to find it in a place of faith, but this is important because we can't make politics our religion. Too many people have left faith and tried to replace that God-shaped hole in every heart with politics, and it will not work. And if you bring politics into your church, it's not going to end well for you either. We have to have a separate place outside of politics. It plays an important role in our country, but it can't be the dominant role in our lives. We have to be able to put it aside, and we have to be able to see each other. When I grew up in my congregation, I did not know who the Republicans and the Democrats were in my congregation, and I wished I didn't know that now. We have to see each other by other labels first. We're Americans, we're Utahns or Pennsylvanians, we're moms, we're dads, we're Utah Jazz fans or 76ers fans, right? Those are good tribes. And eventually we get down to the politics side. But I'll just conclude with this. The leader of my faith, who passed away just a couple months ago, he taught a very powerful lesson to us. He begged us to be peacemakers. And in my faith, in the New Testament, Jesus issued a commandment. And I think it's the hardest commandment of all of them. He told us that we had to love our enemies, that we had to do good to them that hate us and despitefully use us. That's not what politics teaches us today. And too often we think we can separate our Christianity or our religion from our politics. That I'm going to treat my enemies with love and respect, except if they're a progressive. And that I keep looking for that exception. I didn't find Jesus say that anywhere. He didn't say you get a pass for politics. And so, to my fellow Americans, to my fellow worshipers, whatever it is, whether you're in a sacred place like this, whether you're in a synagogue, whether you're in a mosque, I don't care where it is. You are our fellow Americans. And tonight, we, a Republican and a Democrat, a Mormon, a Jew, we need you now more than ever. This country, if we're going to make it another 250 years, if we're going to make it another 2.5 years, we desperately need you tonight to lay down your swords and to treat each other with dignity and respect again.
Amen.
Well, governors, thank you so much. The former White House correspondent in me needs to ask if either one of you is running for president.
One of us is not.
Okay. I was thinking maybe a unity ticket and let you disagree better about who tops it. Thoughts? Thank you so much for your time tonight. Very much appreciate it. Thank you to the Cathedral for hosting us and for this beautiful venue and this spirit that has definitely presided over this tonight of unity and care for each other, which I think we all can get behind.